who believe in God, or the people who believe in UFOs or Santa Claus, let them believe what they want to believe.
Yeah, well, that's what we have done for quite some time in science. I mean, we have been going our merry way, and increasingly it is less and less merry. I mean, we're finding that medical research is being constrained by the religious dogmatism of the Christian right in this country, stem cell research specifically. We have people looking at current events through the lens of biblical prophecy and, quite literally expecting a nuclear confrontation with Iran now in the news as a fulfillment of the book of Revelation. These are not the fringe of our society. Some of these people are lunatics, but they are lunatics who can get Karl Rove on the phone on a weekly basis. In fact, they get a regular call from Karl Rove. I'm talking about people like a John Hagee, who's organized the Christians United for Israel, and this is a lobbying group which is putting pressure on the current administration to take a very hard line with Iran for biblical reasons. Now, I think we probably should take a very hard line with Iran, but it's not going to help to have the religious maniacs of our society push us toward nuclear war because they think this is going to usher in the second coming of Christ. So we have this marriage of religious certainty, truly bogus religious certainty, and divisive religious certainty, and massive political power. And, that is something that we should not be very sanguine about. And scientists really have a responsibility, I think, to call a spade wherever they can and delegitimize the prevailing religiosity of our neighbors. We have a parallel culture in the society where there are people who are informed about science, who respect science, who basically have a rational scientific worldview, and then we have people who have dogmatically rejected the worldview of science, all the while availing themselves of products that are only possible by virtue of science, including medical therapies. And these cultures are not really talking to one another, and it's a scary situation.
I want to talk about science versus religion in just a minute, but you mentioned John Hagee, Pastor John Hagee out of Houston. The American political system is based on the right for people to organize and mobilize their supporters to advance certain aims that they all want advanced. In America, are you really saying that John Hagee should not be able to support Israel because his Christian biblical worldview seems to demand it?
Well, no, I don't think we should take away anyone's political freedom to organize and to represent whatever convictions they have, no matter how bizarre. I mean, we don't pass laws against stupidity. So, stupid people can stand up on soapboxes anywhere they like and start talking. But that doesn't mean anyone has to pay attention to them. And we criticize stupidity, especially when it's public and consequential, and we criticize it mercilessly. And we do not respect stupidity, except we respect religious stupidity. I mean, that's the problem, is that double standard. And so, I think John Hagee should be free to believe whatever he wants to believe, but there are certain beliefs that have to become so embarrassing to hold in public. Analogous to believing that Elvis is still alive or that astrology is an exact science. I mean, if you are someone who thinks that astrology is the most potent of human sciences, and you're interviewing for a job at a Fortune 500 corporation, or you're running a political campaign, and you speak freely about your beliefs, you're not going to get the job, and you're not going to get elected. I mean, this is something that will essentially prevent you from being given too much responsibility in our society, and yet religious certainty, every bit as vacuous as the claims of astrologers, has immense prestige in this society, and that's really what I'm talking about.
So to get back to science, you seem to be saying that if you take science seriously, you will necessarily be as anti-religion as you yourself are.
Well, yeah, in a specific sense. You will be anti-self-deception, and you will be anti-intellectual dishonesty, and you will be anti-false certainty. I mean, you'll be anti-dogma. And that really is the spirit of science, that dogma, wherever it can be discovered, is jettisoned, and we make claims about the world that really do scale with our evidence. And we obey this common sense notion of reasonableness really in every other area of our lives, except when the conversation turns to talk of God and to what happens after death and the divine origin of certain books. So, yeah, it's obvious to me, and it should be obvious to all of your listeners, that there is not a person in this world who is certain that Jesus was born of a virgin or will be coming back to earth who has good reasons for that certainty. I mean, this is just not the kind of thing human beings are in a position to know. And the contents of the Bible are not sufficient to give anyone good enough reasons to be certain about that. And there's no experience people have while praying or in dreams that delivers that certainty. If Jesus shows up in your room while you're praying and looks exactly like the Jesus of Leonardo with a beard and flowing robes, that is not even enough to tell you that the historical Jesus actually had a beard and flowing robes. I mean, that is a vision. We can talk about the status of that visionary experience, but you can't make conclusions about history on the basis of an experience like that. And this is obvious. It's not obvious because nobody in religious culture is willing to talk honestly about these things. But the thing that I'm not criticizing or not saying is in zero-sum conflict with science is spiritual experience. There's no question that people have spiritual experiences. The problem is they're not disposed to talk about them rationally or to draw rational conclusions from them because they're generally having these experiences within the context of a religious worldview that is just brimming with superstition and taboo and Iron Age philosophy. And so we have to talk about spiritual experience, and people, I think, should seek them out. It's just we need to do it very much in the spirit of science.
And when you say spiritual experience, are you speaking metaphorically? Are you really talking about spirit?
Well, no, I'm not making any metaphysical claim, and I'm saying that we shouldn't be eager to make metaphysical claims on the basis of experience. I'm just saying that it's quite possible that people really can transform the character of their moment-to-moment experience of the world through various disciplines of attention, through different ways of thinking about their lives, and even through what I would consider irrational religious ideas and practices. There's no question that people are having an experience in church and an experience devoting their lives to Jesus, say. And this accounts for their attachment to these ideas. I mean, they're having an emotional experience. They're feeling bliss while praying, for instance. So we should understand what bliss is at the level of the brain. We should understand why certain uses of attention generate it and others don't. And these are all things about ourselves that we should come to understand, and many of these are experiences we will still value once we understand them. But the thing is that they just don't support divisive religious dogmas. They certainly don't support the idea held by many people in this country that our morality must come out of Judeo-Christian dogmatism. And as Christians believe in this country, anyone who dies outside of Christ will be confined in conscious torment for eternity. And this is what many Christians believe is going to happen after death. This is not something that is reasonable to believe on the basis of feeling, tears of joy while praying on Sunday.
Just now, you shared many of the lines of attack you present in your book against Christianity. You say that it's bad for America. You say not only is it inaccurate, looking at prophecy, for instance, but it actually harms our society. And you also attack the basic belief in God. I want to talk about all those. Let's first talk about belief in God's existence. Why should a Christian listening to this show or reading your book hesitate at being so certain that there is a loving Father in heaven looking out for them? Why should people at least allow for a little doubt about their Christianity?
Well, there are many ways into this. The first is, I think, it's important to recognize that all Christians know exactly what it's like to be an atheist with respect to the beliefs of Muslims, for instance. I mean, all Christians look at the discourse of Islam and recognize it to be basically a tissue of self-deceptions. I mean, the Muslims claim to have a book that is the perfect word of the creator of the universe. Why do they think this? The book itself